Alright you guys, how's it going? So in this video I'm going to walk you through on how I get the gas mileage I get in my little Ford Ranger over here. And before I begin this video, I should specify what engine it has. I don't know about the gearing, but I know that on the highway it runs pretty high in RPMs. So I can only assume it has the towing gears. But not that this thing can tow much. Anyway, I have the 2.3 liter 4-cylinder, and this truck has just under 140,000 miles on it right now. Now, I'll put a link to it down below. But it was the best gas mileage I've seen so far out of this truck, which was pushing 32 miles a gallon if you round it up. I was getting 31.8, the best I got. And so in this video I'm going to be showing you what I do and what I use as far as products go, how I drive, because it really comes down to driving characteristics. So we'll pull everything out real quick and show you what I use. Oh, these are the three big ones that I actually have, because you know, I ran out of the other stuff. So anyway, I run this with the O'Reilly 5W20, which is what my truck calls for. I think the next oil change I'm going to be switching over to synthetics. This is for my dad's Mercedes, so don't worry, I'm not putting the wrong oil in my truck. And so it's just, you know, synthetics, you get better gas, you can get better gas mileage. I don't really know, because I haven't tried it yet, so we'll try it soon though. Also, there's no myth that gas quality is going down drastically. More water in your gas, the gas is just nowhere near as good as it used to be. So every tank I put this stuff in here. It's the Lucas fuel additive, and it doesn't just clean it, but it also adds lubricity to it, thus increasing your gas mileage and your engine life. So I run about just under a quart of this. It's a 3 to 1 ratio of oil and stabilizer here. And typically with I do about 95% highway driving, so that's another reason why I get such good gas mileage. And so sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, that's right. So on regular oil, and I've only got 4 quarts in the Ranger over there, I can typically get about 7,000 to 8,000 miles out of my oil now, because it extends your oil life. This, I can't say enough good things about this stuff. So for instance, I have a tiny gas tank. I only have 15 gallons, which you truck guys know that's tiny for a truck, but so 4.5 ounces. So 3 ounces for every 10 gallons I put in there. And so that's why I'm pushing about 460 miles out of 15 gallons. And with the combined driving I do, like I said, the video that I'm going to put in there, it was me driving from Los Angeles, or LA County I should say, to my hometown back in Idaho, which is nothing but driving on the highway. And that's why I was getting the fuel mileage. I was getting almost 32 miles a gallon. So and I was using this stuff the entire way. Actually, that was pretty much the highlight of the video, was experimenting with the Lucas there. And like I said, I use that stuff in every oil change. And they also sell the synthetic stuff too, for the synthetic oils, so I think I'm going to buy some of that. And because I love Lucas products. And another thing I overlooked was keeping everything greased. This is a 2-wheel drive, so I like to make sure my spindles are greased regularly. And so I use Lucas Red and Tacky number 2. Lots of it, and my bearings are actually still fairly good, and they're on the original bearings still. So another thing I like to do, and that I started doing, is I'm taking automotive classes down at Oxnard College, and I have free access to a nitrogen machine. So that's another thing I did, is I filled all my tires with nitrogen. And have I seen a dramatic difference? No, but it's just, it runs your tires cooler, so it extends your tire life, and you're not having to constantly air up your tires, because the it's amazing what they've come out with, but the nitrogen molecules are larger than the oxygen molecules, so your tires aren't prone to leakage as much. But that's pretty much the things that I use. There's no performance parts on this truck. It still has the crappy squeaky exhaust that I need to replace. Still the stock air intake, because thanks to the lovely state of California and the smogging, I can't get a aftermarket performance air intake on this truck because of the stupid smog regulations. I can get it anywhere else I want, with the exception of Ada County that I know of in Boise, Idaho, because they've recently picked up California smog regulations. But the most I can do is put a K&N drop-in filter in here, which it's not in there. It's just a paper filter from Ford. So yeah, it's everything's stock on there, tires, everything. There's no the only thing I'm actually adding is the fuel and oil additive. So she's pretty lively for 15 years old, huh? But then I'm gonna go into the driving characteristics over with you guys now. So as far as driving characteristics, I know I'm not in the truck to show you guys, but on the highway, I don't do more than 65 miles an hour. At most times I'm doing 60, and I'm in the right lane driving with the semis. And like I said, for the gearing in my truck, I'm just over 2,000 RPM, which for a 4-cylinder, that's just sipping on gas. And so it's pretty typical to go about 70, almost 80 miles before my needle comes off pegged on full, if I do drive in a full tank. And it's also a manual. I forgot to clarify that. It's also a stick shift. And so the other thing I like to do is, not only for safety, but for fuel consumption, is I increase my following distances until someone cuts me off and gets in my way. Southern California drivers, gotta love them. So and that allows me just to take my foot off the gas and not have to use my brakes, because you use your brakes, then that's momentum you have to gain back up with gas consumption. So it's kind of like being on a fuel economy run all the time, but now it's become such practice that I've done it so often now that it's just common practice now. But so I get all kinds of looks on the freeway, like, why are you driving so slow? But you'll see the guys in the Super Duties and whatnot, and the big diesels, F350s, the stuff like that. They're driving at 60 miles an hour because they're getting better gas mileage, because it ultimately comes down to drag. And I forget the exact figure, but don't quote me on this, but I may put it down in the description box if I'm not correct right now. But for every 5 miles an hour you increase, I believe you increase your drag by 7%. And the ideal miles per hour is 45 for gas mileage, but I'm not going to go that slow on the freeway. Guess that's just waiting for an accident. But yeah, so just take that into account next time you're doing 75 or 80 miles an hour on the freeway. And because stick your hand out the window, when you're doing that kind of speed, and just let your arm go. It's nuts. And the other thing that I really didn't do before, but now I do now, is even if it's not a cold morning, I'll come out here and start my truck up and let it warm up. Now logic says, well, you're burning gas, because then you're just using more gas. But think about it in this realm, sorry for the wind, of what do you do before you work out and go run? You stretch. Your truck's not going to injure itself being cold, but you feel better when you stretch, everything else. And running your engine in the morning, getting it warmed up, is what I like to call warming your truck up. Or you know what I mean. So that's another thing I do now, is I warm my truck up in the morning for about 5 or 10 minutes while I'm brushing my teeth and getting dressed. So, but it's all these little tiny steps that can get your vehicle, it doesn't matter if it's a car or truck, better gas mileage. Is just to slow down a little bit. And I'm not talking grandma speeds here or anything, just drop it down by 5 or 10 miles an hour. And that's the thing, is I did an average test about times, and time it take me to get to school, and it's about 16 miles from here to Moore Park, where I primarily go to school. And driving at 70 and driving at 60, I was only I was only about 45 seconds with traffic, of course. I was only about a minute to about 45 seconds behind what I would have been at 70 miles an hour. It's amazing. So that's another thing to think about, you know. And you know, think like if you have a car, you know, take the luggage rack if you don't use it all the time. You know, it's just more drag. I mean, granted, my antennas, they'd add a little bit of drag here, but not much. So, but yeah. So that's really how I get the gas mileage I get, you know. Another thing, I've seen it every once in a while, people have their tailgates down while they're driving on the freeway, but that actually doesn't help your gas mileage, because if you've seen the videos of trucks in wind tunnels and then they have the white smoke going over, you'll notice that there's a pocket of air back here if your tailgate's up, and that air actually helps push you along. So if you put your tailgate down, that air is just going right out. So in realistic senses, it's actually less efficient. So there's so many factors to fuel efficiency. It's nuts. But yeah. But anyway, going back to the speed. I know that I'm kind of rambling here, but I just wanted, you know, make sure I cover every single aspect of what I do to help you guys get better gas mileage. But it's interesting driving at 60 miles an hour. You know, every once in a while I like to make sure and see how far my gas pedal is depressed, because if you think about your valve right there by your throttle body and your injectors, all that stuff, the more the further open that your valve is, the more gas and air that you're consuming. And it's amazing, at 60 miles an hour my foot and my gas pedal is only down about that much, you know, compared to 70 it's probably like that much. So and that's the drag that you're fighting and everything else. So it's really coming down to a science. But yep, so I just thought I'd share my 2 cents on how I get my gas mileage I get. So again, pushing about 32 on the freeway, and combined, you know, it really depends on how much city driving I do. The last calculation I did on my phone, my app, was 29.7, and that was with about 30% driving here in the city. And like I said, my truck never sees past, my RPM never goes past 3,000 RPMs. You know, it's granted that's not where the peak power is, but and it's more than enough to get me going. So, but anyway, kind of seems like I'm rambling here, so I think I'll cut the video off. But that's everything that I do and everything that I use to get the gas mileage I get. Questions, comments, leave them down below. Feeling generous, hit that like button, and as always, thanks for watching, guys. Take care.